Hello everybody, thank you for tuning into this episode of In Hindsight with Diala. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, LA's own Bobby Coleslaw. One half of Fisticuffs. Brian, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking.
Of course.
Obviously, you've got a super cool job that you're going to tell us about today.
It's alright.
So what is it that you do specifically?
Well, at this point, a couple things, but what I started off doing was in music producer. Well, I started off as a musician, which turned into music production. And then from there, I took those earnings and started getting into real estate. And then now I do that. I also invest in a couple of things. So, but it all starts from music production.
All starts from music.
Base, yeah.
Brian is being very humble, you guys. Brian, Grammy nominated, worked on some of the most amazing albums of your lifetime, most likely. You might not know who he is, but you've definitely cried, laughed, had some of the best moments of your life listening to some of his music. So we're going to dive into that a little bit further today, pick your brain a little bit. Initially, what drew you to music?
So it all started off in elementary school. My dad was big into music. Well, for one, my dad is from Ohio. My uncle, his brother, was signed to Motown back in the day. So my dad came to LA with his brother. And so my dad's always been big into music. Like ever since I was born, he always had music in the house playing, jazz, oldies, all sorts of stuff. And so I just kind of had that from a child, just being around music. And then when I was in elementary school, we had the school orchestra, and then you can pick an instrument, right? That was like your chance to play an instrument. And originally I wanted to play drums, but we lived in an apartment, and my dad was like, no. So he was like, what about the trumpet? So okay, well, so I picked up the trumpet.
Is the trumpet a lot quieter than the drums?
Not too much, yeah. Not too much, actually, now that you say that. But yeah, so I started playing the trumpet in elementary school, and obviously my dad was like, big into helping me cultivate that. So he had me in private lessons. All my schools were like music based. So that's kind of where I got the start from music. And then when I got to high school, because again, like when I came up, it was like orchestra and jazz band. But as a kid, I would listen to like hip hop and like R&B. Like those were my loves. So when I got to high school, that's when he got me my first keyboard, and I was able to start making beats. And that kind of transitioned me from like a jazz trumpeter to like making like hip hop and like R&B, like tracks that I more enjoyed listening to. So so that's kind of where I got my start from. But yeah, I would say that I guess my father and just my upbringing in music is kind of where I get the
all pops.
foundation. Yeah.
Thank you, pops.
Absolutely, shout out to pops.
Shout out. So that kind of brings me to my next question. Growing up with a musician background, having a brass instrument background specifically, right? How did that? You were kind of going into what you listened to as a kid being the thing that inspired you to get into production. But because I think a lot of people may be even confused about the difference between a musician and a producer, how did that kind of hand in hand lead you down that line to trying out production?
Just the knowledge of music, right? So the difference is a musician is someone who plays an instrument, like plays music, right? Producer, you can be a producer and not have any musical knowledge or background. Like for instance, you heard of people, well, and I don't want to make, talk down or anything like that, because I'm sure, but you have like your DJ Khaled's and your Diddy's and stuff like that, where it's like, they're not really like in there playing keys. They'll hire musicians and stuff like that, but at the same time, that's still a producer, because they still have the ear to be like, okay, I want it to sound like this. I want to get these musicians in, I want it to, and basically you're still like cultivating a sound or a song, whatever. So that is production. So, but like I said, the difference is a musician is someone who plays music. A producer is someone who makes music, but you don't necessarily have to play an instrument. Especially nowadays too, you have, people, a lot of hip hop producers especially, they like to sample, right? So like with sampling, I could take a record from, the Isley Brothers and put some drums on it, and I made a beat, and it could be a really dope beat. But at the same time, it's like, that person probably doesn't know anything about C minor and A major and like any like musical, background or whatever. So I think that's the difference. But yeah, a producer doesn't necessarily have to know music. A musician, they should know music.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like tools like VSTs, stuff like that, it kind of opens up the doors for more people to get into production who may not have a music background in the past. But would you say that having that music background really helped you find your sound when it came to making that production?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like any producer that has a musical background and actually understands music is they're a lot more in sessions, like they're not as limited, you know what I'm saying? So like I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm just a beat maker, right? Not a musician, but someone who just like sample, I make beats, I don't know about music. And let's say, I get a big life-changing session and I'm in with Beyonce, right? Like, oh, she heard this beat I like, a little sample, whatever. So now say I go in a session with Beyonce and all of a sudden she's like, hey, like the key's a little low for me. Like, let's raise it up. Or, she's like, oh, I want to put a change. Like, let's do like a bridge. Or like, for the chorus, let's like go somewhere else. Without any musical knowledge, you're going to be like, I don't even know what that means. You're like stuck. Whereas, myself, it's like, okay, cool. Like, you can change the key or, whatever. If you need to, raise it up, whatever, you need to add a bridge. Just like, again, having that musical knowledge can, you can navigate a lot more easier.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's not necessarily what makes it better, but it definitely does assist in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's understanding music too. Just because again, like if you don't know, so music's like a language, right? And there's they say there's no wrong in music, but there's no wrong notes, but you have notes that like just to give you an example, right? Like we're in this key of C minor. So in C minor, in that scale, there's certain notes that work. Mm-hmm. There's other notes that don't really sound as good in that key, right? So if I know music, okay, I know like if I'm doing a bass line, I know to kind of like stick to these notes. I can do the root notes, blah, blah, blah. But if I don't have any knowledge of music and I'm just playing stuff, like I could be hitting wrong notes and people that understand music will listen to that and be like, yo, sounds crazy. Like this sounds terrible, you know what I mean? So just knowing and having an understanding of how to speak the language, it just, makes it better for people that do understand it, you're not sounding crazy.
Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. Was there a point specifically that you felt like you realized that production was no longer something that you were taking as a hobby or something that you were really interested in, and it showed you the potential of it as a career?
Let's see. I mean, again, I started making beats in high school for fun, right? But the thing is, music was, at that point I had just been doing music, my whole childhood. That's kind of what I wanted to do, especially once I started making beats, rather than be like a jazz trumpeter. It's like, okay, like I can like make beats and, it's like I want to work with like, artists and things like that. So it was always a dream of mine. But at the same time, I never had like a plan B. So I think for me, just like doing it, I mean, I was blessed and fortunate to work with some people that, took off and helped my career take off as well. But I would say when I knew it was more than a hobby was, my career started in the MySpace days, right? Not to age and date myself, but MySpace days and Miguel. Miguel was like the first artist, like my partner and I, Mac, other half of Fisticuffs. We were developing and cultivating, we had our own studio, Miguel would come by, and at this time we would do songs and we put them on our MySpace pages. So this is before he signed, like, he's unknown at the time, and, we're just putting songs on our page, he's putting songs on his page. Next thing you know, he's getting millions of hits, and then he ends up getting signed, and that's when we get our first, like, placements as producers, like on a major project. And so I guess, that would be essentially showing like, oh damn, like, okay, we're getting a check. Like this is like our first time getting, some money and, some nice money too. So it's kind of like, okay, this is, you always dream to make it. It's like someone going to the NBA, like, you're going to practice, you're doing games and stuff, but then it's like you get the call one day and it's like, damn, like we actually made it. So for me, I guess like the aha moment was like when Miguel was signed, and then, we had signed the paperwork, we got 5 songs on the first album, we get that first check. And then it's all real from there, and it's like, okay, we made it. But also too, it's, I was making beats for like 10 years before I got my first placement. So, they always say like the first one's the hardest one. Like once you get in the door, and once you're in the door, it's, I mean, it's not easy, but it's, at least, I don't know, something about getting to that first one is like, that was a tough moment, and it took time, but yeah, once we made it, that was it.
That's really interesting, and I kind of, I think it's especially intriguing because there are a lot of people who are maybe intrigued by the idea of going into production, and in a lot of ways, you kind of came in with an artist that you were backing, that you saw potential in, and you were able to help him grow, which is what kind of differentiated you in that time, because there is a lot of oversaturation in this market. But would you say that that's something that you would recommend to producers?
Yeah, I always say that. Like you got to think like people that make beats nowadays. Again, all you need is a laptop, and I get you. Like I said earlier, you don't even have to know music. So there's tons of people that make beats. So what's going to differentiate yourself from just everyone making beats, right? It's tough. You got to have like a track record or something like that. But what I always tell producers is, if you have an artist that you believe in and you cultivate that and you develop that, it's easier for an artist to blow up first than like someone who just make beats like without no face, no name. And then once that artist does blow up and you're behind that, then that's what kind of like gets you in the door. Mm-hmm. So for instance, like with Miguel, right? It's like we knew from the beginning, like he was, he had a great voice, he had a dope look, like he had the star power, and so and again, it wasn't even on some like, oh, we know this, but it was just like, it was fun to do. Like we knew he was dope. And again, at that point, you're just, you're making stuff because you love it, right? So, luckily it found the right channels to actually get to the hands it needed to for everything to turn out like it did. But, at that point, again, we're just doing it for fun. But, because he did blow up, it's like, okay, so once he started popping, it's like, oh, who did all these beats? Okay, Fisticuffs, and then again, that's what kind of got us in the door. Again, I always recommend to any producer, like, find an artist that you love, develop it, and that'll get you in the door way faster than, just sending beats off. You gotta think too, like, for instance, with like people like Timberland, right? He had like Aaliyah, he had, like Genuine and stuff. Neptunes, like they had a bunch of, artists that they developed and put out like the clips and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, so that's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like that's definitely a cool route, is to help develop somebody and popping.
No, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, music is not something that anybody can really make on their own perfectly, right? Like the input of others is always going to help. So you being in that position, having music knowledge, and then coming in from that production standpoint, like that just makes it that much more powerful when you're dealing with an artist specifically. Because a lot of times, artists will come in with great talent, that star look that you were talking about, but maybe not know where to go from that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that helps give them a lot of guidance.
It's a collaborative thing, because even like with Fisticuffs, it's two of us. It's like I always feel like the thing that we have that's cool is, it's like checks and balances, Mm-hmm. So like if you're just working by yourself, like you might be like, oh, I think this is cool, but when you have someone else to be like, no, this is cool. Like when we both like something, it's kind of like, okay. So, especially like when we're working with the artists, like, if everyone in the room is loving it, then it's like, chances are it sounds good,
Yeah.
So it's nice to have those checks and balances.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you've worked with a multitude of artists, so many different artists, Jasmine Sullivan, Janae, you name it. You kind of...
Kendrick, Mariah, Snoop. Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways you kind of shaped that alternative R&B genre, that we saw really gain a lot of headway in the 2000s and 2010s. So, I mean, you have a lot of experience under your belt working with artists. That being said, were there any experiences, maybe early or maybe not even so early into your career, that you were dealing with an artist that you think taught you a very important lesson?
I mean, I don't have any like crazy stories or any like horror stories. Fortunately, like the people we work with have been cool. Fortunately, they've been all solid people. But I will say the one lesson is just put out product, like because especially with Miguel in the beginning, you gotta put that stuff out, because it's not gonna do anything just sitting in a hard drive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people that have like a lot of dope music and they just like sit on it, which I understand, but at the same time, like that stuff just needs to be out, because all it does is, one song can change your life, and it's all timing as well, to give you an example, like Miguel, when he put out Adorn, that song was out for 2 years before it like really like started blowing up, you know what I mean? And then now fast forward to like Sure Thing, like that song was out for 10 years and then it went #1 after 10 years because of TikTok. But so who's to say, put some stuff out, and, it might take some time for it to get to where it needs to go, but at least it's, it's out there, and that's that would be my thing. Just stop holding on to the music.
Yeah. Let the people have it. They want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also if you're like if you're signed and stuff like that, that's different, because you got to worry about the label and all that.
For sure.
But if you're just an independent artist or just yeah, man, put that stuff out.
Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Nike says.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Have you ever made a creative or a career decision that you look back on now that you think, man, I should have handled that a little differently?
Outside of just like I should have worked harder, maybe. No, I'm happy with the way things turned out. Like I'm a firm believer of everything happens for a reason. But no, like I said, the people that we've been working with, like it's Miguel, Janae, it's been over a decade, and we're still in the studio with them, still working. So I would just say, yeah, just be a good person, man, and just keep those connections. Just don't ruin it, don't burn bridges. Just be cool, man. Just be cool. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, the only thing I would say is, I could have worked harder. But on the flip side, it's like, also you got to learn to enjoy life and kind of, take time, especially in the creative field. It's like, it's hard to just be a robot and just create, because, you got to feel, music is a feeling, right? So sometimes you feel it and some days you're not feeling it. So on those days when you're not feeling it, you got to just learn to, okay, let me just sit back and not just, waste time or, whatever. Let me just let me feed my spirit, and whether that's, just relaxing or doing something else. But yeah, work harder.
Obviously working in a creative field, there are a lot of external pressures that I think a lot of artists have to deal with in their everyday lives. The pressure to perform a certain way, or to make things a certain way, or to live up to a certain hype. Were there any pieces of advice that you might give to aspiring producers in terms of staying authentic to their sound and dealing with those external pressures?
Yeah, I mean, external pressures, it's good and bad. I mean, at the same time, there's a fine line between like trying to, make everyone happy and, whatever, like having joy in what you're making. I feel like the most important thing is obviously like being proud of the art you're creating, right? Like if you're not feeling it, what makes you think other people are gonna feel it, right? So that's always our thing, like, the projects we work on, the artists we work on, the stuff we make. Like sure, we could have probably made more money and did like some pop stuff that, things that, I didn't necessarily listen to, but, would I have been fulfilled in doing that kind of stuff? Like, no, we've tried it, and it's, it's like, I'd rather work on things that bring me, satisfaction and joy. So I feel like that's first and foremost. But at the same time too, it's like, yeah, having an ear to be like, okay, like this is dope for me, but I feel like this is also like, this would be a good, radio record, or this can be like a hit or something like that. It's like, I feel like that's the thing about when, having a good ear, that's what makes you, I guess like valuable, it's like you can tell that line between, again, crossover or, whatever, like hit, and still being authentic. But sometimes you can't even call it, like for instance with Janae, like we did The Worst on her first EP, right? The song The Worst. If you would have told me that was going to be a radio record, I would have laughed at you, like, because it's not, you're not your typical tempo. It's not like, fun upbeats. It's kind of just like slow, dark, kind of like riding record. But it was all over radio. It was a big successful record. So that also to me kind of showed too, like, there's not really a formula per se. You know what I mean? So that's why I said at the end of the day, like, just be proud of what you make, and hopefully people enjoy it as well, and they'll find its way.
Absolutely. I think that you have a really interesting background in that way specifically too, because yes, what we were talking about earlier with the R&B, but really truly kind of allowing alternative R&B to more so find its groove and to reach bigger audiences. I think there are a lot of people out there who maybe didn't even know that they liked alternative R&B before they started to hear your record. So
no, it's funny. I definitely. No, not to toot our own horn, but yeah, like the stuff we were working on in the beginning with like Janae and Miguel, like this is all, again, yeah, like that sound wasn't really there, like the whole vibey, smooth kind of like R&B, which they coined it now like alt R&B. But I remember, so we were that because again, like the music I listen to, like I'm a chill guy. So like I don't know, it kind of comes through in the music. So a lot of our stuff would be chill. But at the same time, like I love hip hop, I love bass, I love like 808s, low end. So that was kind of like our thing. It's like, let's take these pretty, someone like Janae with an angelic voice, and let's put some like hip hop beats underneath it, just kind of vibey shit. And so yeah, obviously from there spawned a lot of like artists that are along that way. But I remember the year that the Grammys came out, and it was always like best R&B album, like R&B. But then it got to a point where like you couldn't put Janae up against like a Jill Scott or like a Music Soul Child because it was just like so different. Mm-hmm. Like even like a Rihanna. So I remember the year that it happened. I wish I just moved, so I don't have my Grammy stuff up. But there was one year that they made. It was the first year for alt R&B, mm-hmm. And I remember kind of being like, damn, like we helped, like develop a whole genre.
Definitely pioneered that in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, alt R&B. So it was a new category in the Grammys, even to this day. So yeah, you have your, this year is like Leon Thomas is nominated for a bunch, but like that's all considered like alt R&B. And then you have your, traditional R&B. I guess the difference now is like traditional R&B, I guess, is more like acoustic instruments, mm-hmm. and alt R&B would be, ones that have like synthesizers, things like that. So
for sure, yeah, that's super cool though. To be able to create that distinction within mm-hmm. the genre, super cool. Mm-hmm. In 2014, about 10, 11 years ago, you did an interview with Basshead Studios. And in that interview, they asked you what your short and long-term goals were for 2014. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what you said?
Not at all.
I can tell you. Okay. You said, "My goal in general is to make good, respectable music and to continue to change the game. I can honestly say we helped pioneer this new alternative R&B wave, and I want to continue to push the envelope and develop more artists from the ground up." Now, looking back on what you said, it's 2025, almost 2026. It's been a long time since you made that statement. How has that long-term and short-term goal changed for you?
Yeah, still the same thing, man. Just still working with people, and yeah, just helping push the envelope. We still love R&B. We still love hip hop. That's never changed. But yeah, just working. That was always a thing. Just work with artists that we enjoy being around, creating with. To me, that's like the fun part about music. It's like, because people ask me like, oh, how do you, like, what makes you love it after all this time? Because we've been doing it for like almost 2 decades now, right? Mm-hmm. But for me, it's like, okay, making beats is one thing. Like, I can make a beat and be like, oh, this is great. But giving it to an artist or a writer and hearing what they do with it, that's the joy, right? Like, especially when you're working with someone dope. Like, the worst is when you have like a crazy track and then you give it to someone and they just like butcher the song and it's just like terrible. You're like, damn. But you have those times where you give it to someone and they come up with this amazing song and it's just like, damn, like I'm in my own song, like I'm a fan of the art. It's like I'm a fan of my own shit that's being created. Because every time you start, it's like a blank canvas, right? Yeah. So to see like, okay, we put some little trees in a little stream. Okay, now the other artists, oh shit, they put a whole house and blah blah blah, and now the picture looks amazing. So like to me, that's the cool part. Is it's like the the collaboration, and again, just seeing what someone can do to it, and just making an amazing song. So yeah, so that's what makes it fun. And then yeah, finding those artists that can do that. And this thing, it's like, it's forever changing. Like, just 2 days ago, I got in with somebody, a new artist, unsigned, but he's incredible. He's a talented kid. He produces his own stuff. He sings, he writes, and so yeah. So we'll see what goes on with that. But so yeah, that's what makes it fun. Just finding new talent to collaborate with and just becoming fans of their work.
For sure, for sure. I have a fan question now. Honestly, what's the last thing you worked on that you were like, damn, that's real cool?
There's a song that we just worked on last week. It's not out yet.
No spoilers.
It's not out yet, but I guess I can. It's about the time this comes. The one's gonna come out. Okay, I'd say like there's a song we're working right now with. Well, I can't say because it's 2 people on the song together. Let's just say that it's the girl. She's like number 1. She's like one of the hugest artists right now.
Okay.
She's a pop artist though. So we're doing something a little different. So yeah, so I mean that's exciting because I don't know if necessarily worked with someone like on that magnitude who's like number one at the moment. So yeah, we're excited to see
where it goes.
No, it's not Dua Lipa.
All right.
But but she's up there. She's up there. I'll tell you off camera.
Okay, deal.
But yeah, no, that's like the most recent thing. But also too, we're wrapping up Janae's album right now, and
that's awesome.
That's little sis. We're always excited to put out music with her. Her stuff's always so dope, and people love her, man. Her fan base is insane.
Oh yeah, I mean, what's not to love about her? She's absolutely stunning. She's got the voice of an angel.
Yeah, and she's relatable.
Definitely.
And she talks about fuck man and girls love that stuff.
Yeah, and she's such a wonderful mommy too. So seeing all of the different sides of her, super cool. And then just even getting to have this relationship with you and getting to hear these like little cool side pieces that I might not have heard before if I didn't know you. It's cool stuff. Shout out to Nay. Big fan over here.
Yeah, so the album will be coming out sometime next year. Hopefully like middle of the year, top of the year, somewhere around there.
Awesome.
We're almost done. Yeah, we're almost done.
Yeah. Well, so are we. That kind of brings us to the last little piece that I like to talk to everybody about. Obviously, the podcast is called In Hindsight with Diala. I have for you today is, what is something that you would have changed about your journey in hindsight?
Nothing. Again, a firm believer, everything happens for a reason, right? So, again, and it's back to what I was saying earlier, like the only thing I would change is probably like work ethic, But again, who's to say, like I could have probably went crazy just trying to, because I was, in the studio till 5, 6 in the morning, like every day working on stuff. And even to this day, like I still, that's why my sleep schedule is so crazy, just because of the years of just being in the studio. So not to say I didn't work hard, I definitely did. But you go through your waves of like being super busy, and then we were fortunate to become successful. Then had a little bread, so it's like okay, let me enjoy life a little bit. So even now, like I want to travel a little bit, and fortunate to be able to work not out of necessity, but just out of love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and also too, that's why I went back to when I was talking about like investing in real estate, like that kind of opened up, for a lot of free time as well, just like passive income and things like that. So
sure.
So now when I do music, it's it's because I want to, not out of necessity. But yeah. So that's why. With that being said, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily change anything outside of maybe trying to be out there more. Because I'm, even my partner too. Like we're both like behind the scenes. Like we're not really like the outgoing, out there, super talkative. Like we're just kind of, low key. So, but maybe trying to be out there a little bit more, connecting more, to be able to, I guess, work with more people.
Yeah.
But again, life is good, man. So I can't complain. Like,
I think nothing is a great answer. Like if you look back on your journey and you say that there's a whole list of things that you would have changed, man, you can't go back in time and do that. So to look back and to be able to say that there was nothing that you would have changed and it's just been a great ride, I think that is something that a lot of people who are aspiring to get into this position that you're in would love to hear too. And going into how authenticity has always been an important thing for you, where maybe you could have made more money or you could have had more opportunities if you had pushed a barrier on a genre that you were less familiar with or that you cared less for. But rather than taking those opportunities and trying to make something that didn't feel authentic to you, you stuck to what you know, and you were able to pivot that and turn it into something even cooler that like you're kind of at the foreground of. So definitely can appreciate that. Well, I appreciate your time and all the insight that you've provided for us today. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are going to gain a lot from this.
No, for sure. Again, just work hard. That's the main thing. Like, and also too, don't be don't put a time limit on things. Like, I would think that's another big thing for people to know. It's like, again, it took me 10 years of like making beats to get my first like placement. So and I say that not to say to discourage people, but I just say that to say, you gotta put the work in. You gotta put your 10,000 hours in. And again, it's timing. Like, who's to say like if my career would have jumped off at the beginning, I would have been ready. You know what I'm saying? So it took some time. Timing, being with the right people, getting with Miguel, putting stuff on MySpace, and getting into the right hands. But just work hard. Do it because you love it. Again, for 10 years of me making music if it was based off of money, I would have stopped a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because I loved it. I loved, you know, doing what I was doing, working with who I was working with. It didn't, you know, it didn't feel like a job. It just felt like us, you know, having fun. So I would say that's the main thing. Have fun, work hard, and if it's meant to be, it is, you know, it takes time. It just takes time. And one last thing to expand on that, which is I think it's a testament to that whole, you know, statement as well, as like the people that I was coming up with in the studio. It was like other producers in there as well. Everyone at some point all kind of like went their own separate way, but everyone stuck to it, and to this day we're all successful in music, you know what I mean? So again, to say like, you know, even though we all went our separate ways, everyone just kept at it, you know, and some popped off faster than others, but at the end of the day, we all did, you know, we all made it, and you know, just it takes time. So that's why I say just keep going, man. If you enjoy it, just keep going. You know, and if you don't enjoy it, then stop doing it. But
yeah, that's plain and simple.
If you enjoy it, you know, and you're good at it, it'll get to where it needs to go. And so that's the main thing. So.
Well, that was really cool. I can't believe that I even get to sit here and pick your brain about these things, you know?
Anytime.
Yeah, super awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of In Hindsight with Diala. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Hope you guys enjoyed. Bye-bye. All right, period. Thank you, Brian.
Of course, thank you.